Welcome to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, the daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball. You never know what special guest may stop on by any given day. Now here's the man of the hour, Mr. Steve Jones.
During the course, in the second hour of the show today, Jason's going to fill out his bracket for you. That is, again, in the second hour of the show. How long is this show?
I'll tell you, thank goodness, because that means very, very few people are going to see me fill that bracket out.
I'd like to know what not to do. All right, so brackets are out. If I had to make one argument, it would be, why is Virginia in? Why is St. John's out?
Absolutely.
I realize that the old standard of taking the last 12 games does not apply anymore. But I think it has to come into the realm of common sense of watching a Virginia team that really struggles to score. Mm-hmm. And because they struggle to score, they aren't winning games. Versus a team like St. John's, this is a wide-open team, and as an example, lost its semifinal game by 5 points to, UConn, which I heard's pretty good. Now, I realize you're playing that game in Madison Square Garden, but that's a better representative than watching Virginia play NC State the other night and watching Virginia totally botch up the end of the game. How do you sit there with 3 fouls to give and not give any? I don't understand what they were doing. Strategically, it made no sense what they did. They gave no fouls. And, of course, they ended up giving up a tying shot and then lost in overtime. But I don't know. That would be the one argument I have. I mostly root for people. Okay, so was I rooting for Colorado? Sure, because I have met and he's been on this show because we've met and so forth. Tad Boyle, like him. Mark Johnson, their play-by-play guy, like so those personal relationships do come into play of people I know along the way. Indiana State. Not in. Number 1 seed in the NIT. One of the 4 number 1 seeds. This is what happened over the weekend that caused the upheaval. 5 times a team that was not in the tournament won a conference tournament championship. 5 times a team that was not in the tournament won a conference tournament championship. And I don't mean a one-bid conference. I mean in a multi-bid conference. The last 2 years combined, it happened 3 times. The last 2 years combined, it happened 3 times. This time it happened 5 times. Oregon's not in the tournament. Yeah. All right? They're not going to make it until they beat Colorado in the championship game.
Yep, absolutely.
So there is Indiana State, 28-6. And Rick Pitino made a point about the net. And as you know, I've never been enamored with the net. I mean, because I don't really know what are the factors you put into the net? I have no idea. Now, I do know when they list net, they list quad 1s, 2s, 3s, 4. So what do quad 1 and 2 mean? Quad 1 and 2, this is what they mean, just so you understand. That's where the pool is coming from for the at-large bids are in the quad 1, quad 2 rankings. Okay? That's the at-large pool, in or out. The number of wins that you get against quads 1 and 2 tell the committee you're capable of winning a game in the tournament. Okay, that is the bottom line for what they did last year. I'm trying to think. Last year, Penn State had 9, 10 wins against teams that were in the tournament. I think they had 10 wins against teams in the tournament last year. Right. That's why the craziness of like people saying, well, Penn State, well, because what they did at the end. No, last year they beat Furman in November.
Yep.
Tournament team. They beat Illinois in December. They beat Iowa, Michigan, and Indiana. Iowa, Michigan, and Indiana all in January. I mean, it set up the end, but all those games counted because, several of those wins were wins against teams in the field.
Yeah.
Okay, that's you don't get yourself like they only what they did at the end. It's the typical ignorant refrain that I just sit back and go, no, the end was huge because, it vaulted them over the hump. But what they did the other months and the other wins they had helped set up the end. I mean, for goodness sakes, it's like saying UConn only played great in February last year because in January they lost games. Everybody has that.
Yeah.
But the net, remember I was talking about the Lady Line basketball team? They'll play George Mason on Thursday night?
Yeah.
I believe, yeah. What time does that start, 7?
I think it is 7, because I think it's going to be the first.
In the WBIT.
Yeah.
And they were 27th in the net. Well, Indiana State was 29th in the net and didn't make it. All right. Then why have it? If you're 29th in the net, why have it? I realize that you're going to have more, because of the rankings, more quad one opportunities than Indiana State will. Oklahoma, for example, had 16 quad one opportunities. They won 4. Virginia, has exactly as many quad one wins as Penn State this year. You realize that?
Did not.
Penn State and Virginia have the same number of quad one wins, 2. Virginia's 2-6. Now, Indiana's not playing the minefield. Indiana State, I should say, is not playing the minefield that Oklahoma's playing. They're not. Okay? They don't have to go to Baylor. They don't have to play Iowa State. They don't have to play Kansas State, and have to do it on a repeated game in and game out basis. I understand that. If anybody understands the grind of a Power 6 conference, it's me, because obviously I've been experiencing it for decades. That's great. Oh, geez, the next game's at Michigan State. Oh, great. Oh, the next game is at Illinois. Oh, geez. You have only so much time to celebrate, to go back to home, dorm, or whatever it may be and go, okay, what about the next one? There are some bottom teams in every conference, but that's one thing about college basketball, except for Michigan this year. Look at the Big Ten.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the Big Ten, the alleged bottom teams. For goodness sakes, Penn State was one game out of 6th place.
Yep.
They were one game out of 6th place. And the team was in 6th place. They beat twice.
Yeah.
Right?
Literally tiebreakers are the reason they played Wednesday.
Right. That's how difficult a major conference is. So when you're looking at major conferences and why they're getting so many bids, it's because of that. The odd thing is that in this particular year, ranked teams, so those in the AP and in the coaches' polls, in the last 5 years had a winning percentage of .668 when going on the road as a ranked team. You know what it was this year? 400. So with everything, with transfer portals and everything like that, maybe even travel figured in because people are traveling further than ever to play conference games. Life has narrowed things down. So now they're talking about expansion. 68 works, we all know that. But the percentage of teams in the NCAA tournament now is, believe it or not, lower than it was 25 years ago. Like, oh, that can't be. That's because there are more Division I teams now.
Mm-hmm.
There's 362 of them right now. And the number's going to get a little bit bigger. So, right now, 19% of teams make the NCAA tournament. So, I know I usually expect you to do math off the top of your head.
That's tough these days.
And, by the way, it's 18.7% making them right now. So let's take what really is considered the top out number right now. It seems with everything that has been going on that you've heard 80, but it sounds like that 76 is the highest number people are willing to go. So you're talking about 8 more bids. That would bring the percentage going to the NCAA tournament to what? 21%.
Yeah, 21.
You're only going up 2%. 21%. So if you go 8 more to 76, there will obviously be the St. John's of the world that will get in this particular run. James Madison will go in. James Madison was, I think, from what I understand, they were in the tournament. I think they were second team out. They would get in if you go to 76. So 40 years, they've only added 4 teams from 64 to 68, the last 40 years. Division I schools have swelled by 60 since then. All right? But you need to reward. I don't like this. The net thing replaced RPI, the whole thing. I mean, I don't. If you're not going to use it.
I agree.
The Lady Lions are 27th. If you're not going to use it. Now, I realize the Lady Lions, I believe, had no quad 1 wins.
Yeah, didn't have any.
Right?
Yeah.
And I don't think they had any wins against the AP top 25, which shouldn't matter. I mean, it's just an opinion as to the top 25 are. But I'll give you one. In a 76-team field, does Princeton make it?
That's a good question. That's true.
24-4.
Yeah.
In a 76-team field, would they make it? I
would say they should.
I say no.
Yeah.
No. I'm not saying whether they should. I didn't say whether they should or
whether
shouldn't.
Whether they will they? No.
No.
No, I agree.
No. Now Indiana State would make it.
Yeah.
Big West regular season champ, the Anteaters, Cal Irvine, 24-9. Would they make it? Probably
I don't
not.
think so. No.
Nope. Now, I could see, for example, Indiana State, of course, being in the Missouri Valley, the Valley getting a second one. I could see maybe the Mountain West maybe garnering another one.
Better chance. Yeah.
Right? St. John's.
St. John's.
The Big East.
Yeah, they'd have to be.
All right. In the Big Ten, maybe Ohio State might have made it. Maybe. Pitt, I think, might have made it. Although it looked like Pitt was not even in the next 4 out. But that's expansion is the rage, unless you're doing the Big Ten tournament. Oh, Yeah, we'll expand by one. Okay, there's 18 teams. No. I already love the reaction of some fans. Oh, good. Those 3 coaches should be fired. Oh, geez. Okay, that's fine. All right. I got it. I hope everything's going well at your job.
Boy.
Yeah. Now, if they've had repeated years of bad years, well, yeah, I got it. But like circumstances do enter into what happens with certain teams. I have lived it.
For the folks at Pitt we're eager to get Jamie Dixon out of there. How many Final Fours, Elite Eights, Sweet 16s have they had since?
Well, remember that was the big argument about Jamie Dixon.
Yeah.
I always point to that over and over again. He can't get us past the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something. How's the Sweet 16 look to you right now?
Oh, yeah. Same with Nebraska football. How's 9 and 3 look for you right now?
Yeah. Frank Solich, gone.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm trying to see who. They did list who they did have a list up last night at CBS. So how do you do it? I mean, this year is interesting because I think they originally took 12 seeds and had them play in Dayton. Then they moved it to 11 seeds. Now they got some 10 seeds playing in Dayton. That's interesting. The interesting part is going to be because of conference expansion. Look how much tougher the SEC just got in basketball. Oklahoma's good. Texas is very good.
Very good, yeah, absolutely.
Well, look at the Big Ten. Well, Oregon's pretty good. Washington will have a new coach.
Yeah.
UCLA, this is an aberration for them. Mick Cronin's had them playing at a pretty good level since he got there. And we're all waiting to see what Bronny does. Let him be a kid. Hey, you know what? You're the one that's been promoting him. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Now, there are certain players where you average a point or two a game or a little more in college. You just weren't used right. You go to the NBA, you become a good, at least solid role player or a good player. I'm not sure I put him in that category.
And I realize he had circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely.
He could not give
it no question.
He really couldn't give it a full shot because it took a long time.
That's a big. No, I 100% agree. Yep.
But 76. Now, can you make it work? Of course you can make it work.
Yeah, sure you can.
76 you can work because what it would be. I mean, you can play 4 games in Dayton on Tuesday, 4 games in Dayton on Wednesday, and now we're down to 64, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. And go from there.
So the 76, is the field of 64 still going to be where the official Thursday start, or would it be, I think you absolutely can do that.
Well, for example, I don't know, I didn't see who Grambling was playing. Right. But one thing I've said about Dayton, like you take like 2 16 teams playing.
Yeah.
Well, guess what the team that wins has?
Momentum.
An NCAA tournament win.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's
there's plenty of times where that
you know what I mean?
team.
They have an NCAA tournament win.
Yeah.
Forever. They can put it up. They won a game in the tournament.
The other part of it is you give yourself momentum going into whoever you play.
You do, but
and it works. It's worked before.
Are there teams that have come out of Dayton? UCLA made the final. Came out of Dayton. Right? Well, or they came out of the first 4. I don't think it was Dayton that year.
Yeah.
All right. VCU. Mike was an assistant coach.
VCU is one I thought of, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mike was an assistant coach. All right. I remember watching the game in Tucson. Penn State was getting ready for the NCAA tournament, watching the game in Tucson. I'm like, hey, okay, great. It was a great win. And they ended up going all the way to the Final Four.
Yeah. Yep.
So you've had teams come out of Dayton that have been able to do that. The question is going to be, what number? I think 80 feels and sounds too big.
Yeah. I think
76.
Yeah.
I think if you're going to do something, don't just do it like inch your way toward it. That's why the college football playoff, already talking about 14. Right, good. That means you're not inching your way toward
it. Yeah.
Right? In other words, you're out there and you're trying to, let's go. Let's get this to where it needs to be. Going to 76, to me, if you're going to do it, and there's something great about 68 and the charm of it and the whole thing, but the percentages tell you, when you go to 76 and you're only at 20.8%, okay? Now let's get to, okay? College football, 14 gets you to 10.5%. Okay, that means 90% of the schools are out of it.
Yep.
Okay? In college basketball at 76, 79, a little bit better than 79% of the schools are not in it. And I realize that what Greg Sankey is proposing, and look, everything he proposes has an SEC background to it. So everything he proposes, I want an expanded college football playoff. In other words, I want more SEC teams in there. Mm-hmm. Okay, I got it. I want an expanded NCAA basketball tournament. Well, I want more SEC teams in there. So everything he does always has the backdrop of what benefits the people he works for.
Yep.
I got it. I understand that. It's up to everybody else to lend some balance to it so that we can then go from there and make it great. So we'll find out we'll find out in the end what they want to do with it. UConn goes in as the favorite. They'll play Stetson right away. Florida Atlantic. It's interesting the number of teams I've seen play this year. I saw Florida Atlantic play. They were in the tournament down in Orlando.
Oh, yep.
They play Northwestern. Florida Atlantic is not playing as well now as when I saw them in Orlando. And I thought they were playing a pretty decent clip in Orlando. All right, Northwestern. Okay, Ty Berry's out. And again, if they have Ty Berry, this is an easy call for me. But they don't. It's going to put a lot more pressure on WOWY. San Diego State, UAB. Okay? I'll tell you right now, Auburn's going to have its hands full with Yale.
Uh-huh.
That is a well-coached team. James Jones does a great job.
I agree.
With that program. And it's not as if Yale, okay, Auburn wants to fly up and down the floor, right? Yale wants to take its time. They're among the 40th slowest tempo teams in the country. BYU and Duquesne. I cannot begin to tell you how happy I am for Ray Goss.
Yeah.
Ray Goss is in his 55th year of broadcasting Duquesne basketball. And he's going to the NCAA tournament. Now, as you know, I've known Ray since all those Atlantic 10 days back in the 80s and early 90s. And just a great guy. I am so happy for him that he gets a chance to do this. Somebody said, but the tournament's in Pittsburgh and Duquesne's hosting it, but they got shipped out west. I go, that's because you're not allowed to play on your home floor.
Yeah, you're not playing on your home floor.
Technically, it's not their home floor.
Home area.
Right.
Unless you're UConn and women's basketball. They need a passport to get out of stores. Two teams
Penn State beat this year.
Yeah.
Illinois and Morehead State.
Mm-hmm. Where it's that, yeah.
play each other. And I give Morehead State a lot of credit because they had to go, they went into the season and they lost their leading scorer from last year to an injury, a wrist injury in the preseason, lost him for the year. And then we've seen what Illinois has done. Illinois, the athletes on that team, that's the most athletic team in the conference. Washington State Drake. Washington State has made a great run. But you know what? I've watched them 3 times down the stretch, including a game at home with Washington. Watched them in the Pac-12 tournament, and watched the game with Colorado the other night. I'll be honest with you. In the second halves of games, they don't play well. Right now, they may have played well in the second halves of games during the season, but down the stretch in the second halves of games, they have not been able to play well. They didn't play well against Colorado. They didn't play well against Washington. Drake is a team I like. They are a good-looking team. Cohesive, shoot the ball well. I was really impressed against Indiana State where they had that big lead. Lost the lead. You know how hard it is mentally to get yourself back on track when you do that? And they did.
They did, yep.
Iowa State, it's interesting. A lot of people were saying they might be a 1 seed, To be honest with you, based on how it came out, they weren't close to being a 1 seed. They're a 2, but they were not the 5 or 6 out there. I think they were 7. In other words, they weren't even close. Doesn't matter. It's just now, to me, people, I remember last year with the bracket, somebody said to me, they're a 10. I said, you know what the bracket means? The bracket means it tells you who you're playing next.
Absolutely.
That's all it does. It does not matter what your seed number is. Last year Penn State played Texas A&M because they were the 7. Okay, fine. Well, Penn State was the better team, beat them with relative ease. Well, guess what? The next game was against Texas. Okay, it's just all the brackets do is tell you when you're in it who you are playing next. I don't think people realize that that's what it actually means. We put a lot of 12 beat a 5, and it's all the brackets do is tell you who's next. It's either Colgate or Texas if you win. Okay, that's what it means. And when you're in it, you understand that. You're not sitting there going, wow, FDU. You do sit back and go, wow, FDU beat Purdue, but it's not in your bracket. So you're like, okay, who's in your bracket? Who's doing what? Okay. And they got South Dakota State. South Dakota State, look, Iowa State's going to beat them by a margin. South Dakota State's a good team, but not good enough in this spot. Howard, not good enough against either Howard or Wagner and Howard, combined. And Wagner's only got 7 guys. Wagner has 7 guys. Okay, there are 362 teams. Now, what do you think Wagner does with only 7 scholarship players?
Yeah.
What do you think they do? They don't play fast.
Don't play fast.
They're
There's no way.
They're 360 out of 362 in tempo. Mississippi State, Michigan State. And Michigan State lost 5 of their last 7.
Mm-hmm.
They are going to need Walker and Hall to play well, but they need Hogard to play well. He is such a wild card. Every game, you don't know what you're going to get out of the guy. Holloman is a better, more consistent offensive player than Hogard is, but he's not a good defender. That's it's the trade-off. And they're going to need one of the big guys to do something for them, help out somewhere. Because Mississippi State, here's the key. All right? What don't they do well? They don't shoot the ball well. They're only 32% in threes. They're only 67% at the line. St. Mary's Grand Canyon. Let's give St. Mary's credit. They play at their own deliberate pace. All right. And And by the way, Bryce Drew, Grand King, they're a pretty good team. Alabama, Charleston. Now, this is a crazy one. Alabama was flying along. And down the stretch, they didn't, especially defensively. Okay? Now, you're talking about a team that's a 36.5% three-point shooting team, right? They're also a volume team. They average 30 attempts per game. Now, remember when Nate Oates brought his team into the Jordan Center to play, and Dick and I were doing the pregame show, and I said, Dick, Nate Oates wants three things: layups, free throws, threes. And then Dick took it from there because that's what he wants. Okay. But guess what? Against ranked teams, you know what Alabama's record is against ranked teams? 2-7. I thought they were poised to really, right? They were playing at a high level. And then all of a sudden they started playing some of the better teams in the SEC. And they started not just losing, but they got baseball batted several times. Charleston is interesting. Obviously, I saw them play a couple times last year, so they have some of the same guys. And Pat Kelsey, the coach, has done a great job with them. And look, they're 27-7. There's something about this team that in this spot I like against Alabama. This is a 4-13 game. Clemson. The interesting about Clemson, they have really, for the most part, the same guys that played against Penn State last year. So I've seen a lot of these guys in person, and they're a good team. I thought they were a good team last year. Just a little older this year. Getting the center to come back was huge. I remember when he declared last year he was going to come back for another season. I thought that's a big help for them because he makes a difference in how they play. And this is a team that got blown out by Boston College. But they beat South Carolina and Alabama this year. Okay? Not bad. This is also a team that when they shoot the three well, you can't beat them. When they have been 40% or better in threes, they're 11-0. Are you writing this stuff down?
I'm listening. I'm all ears. We're recording, too, so I'm not...
Okay.
Yeah.
New Mexico, Richard Pitino's team is in. Did not finish the regular season well. No. Because they got out to a great start. I mean, they were 18-3 in their first 21 games. Didn't finish well. Baylor, Colgate. Colgate, obviously I saw Colgate play in person last year. They have a lot of the same guys. But you know what? Colgate is not playing as well this year. I know they went 16-2 in the Patriot, but they had a lot of close games in the Patriot this year, which they didn't have last year, including the semifinal game against Bucknell, where Bucknell, John Griffin's team was beating him to the last 3 minutes. To give Colgate credit on their home floor for winning. Baylor is really good. I know there's going to be a temptation about Colgate here. Resist it. I just feel like they're just not playing as well. I think for 30 minutes they can hang with Baylor. They can't hang with them the last 10. Dayton and Nevada. Unfortunately for Dayton, they're not playing at home because they didn't lose at home this year. Unfortunately, they've got to go play on the road. Okay.
Different team.
They have to go play away from their arena. Nevada, though, has struggled over the last month and a half, up and down, because they started out 15-1. So since then they're 11-6. Okay, that's good. All right, Mountain West, good competition. Then there's this one, Arizona, Long Beach. Arizona, we know all about, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Arizona's very good. A lot of people thought they were in contention to be a number one seed, the whole deal. And then there's Dan Munson, head coach, Long Beach State.
Long Beach State.
Former head coach, Minnesota. Former head coach at Minnesota. Former head coach at Gonzaga before Mark Few. He's coached in Long Beach for 17 years. So Monday before the tournament, they look at him and they go, hey, I think it's maybe time to part ways. You can coach the rest of the season. Go ahead and coach the tournament. And doggone it, they went out and won all 3 games. Now, Arizona will beat them.
I agree.
But there's a part of me that's rooting for Long Beach State.
Big time. You better believe it. Anytime a coach gets fired, like, oh, you're fired, but coach, absolutely. You pull for that coach beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Okay. Houston and Longwood.
Yeah.
What did I say the issue with Houston was? Defense is great.
Defense is good.
But what's the issue? I've said they always have stretches in the first and the second half of drought. Well, they spent an entire afternoon in the desert against Iowa State. They couldn't hit any shots. Now, they'll get themselves back on track against Longwood.
Yeah.
Which is fine. They'll win that game by 20-30. And then there's this one. Here's the subtle one that a lot of people, I don't think, kind of picked up on this. Nebraska's playing Texas A&M. You don't know what I'm talking about, do you?
Not yet. I haven't picked up on it.
Texas A&M just hired Trev Alberts to be their athletic director.
There you go. Yeah, now I see it.
I haven't heard a single person mention that.
One of the great defensive players in Cornhusker history.
Now, obviously, I've seen both teams in person this year. There is something about the Texas. I know Texas A&M beat Penn State in Orlando. Yet the team I saw beat Penn State in Orlando is not as good as the team Penn State beat in Des Moines last year. There's something missing with that team. I know Radford's good. I know Wade Taylor's really good. But up front, they're missing something. This is where rink mass comes into play. Inside, outside. All right? I like Nebraska. I think they're going to get their first ever NCAA tournament win. Now, Wisconsin's got a tough one with James Madison. Remember James Madison opened the season?
Yeah.
They won at Michigan State. Well, guess what? They won 13 more after that in a row. They started out 14-0. And not only that, they've won their last 13 games. Pretty good. They're 31-3. Wisconsin played great in the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah.
They really, Wisconsin, from the beginning of the season to January 31st, Penn State beat them here. And that was a great game.
Yep.
Penn State beat them here, which they were 8-1 in the Big Ten.
Yep.
And that was the one conference loss was Penn State.
Yep.
All right. But starting in the middle of February, right? They started to get a little bit better.
Yep.
This is going to be a really tough game for them. James Madison is going to be really tough for them. They're going to have to hit their threes. Now, the guy that, to me, had plateaued in February was A.J. Storr. Storr, in March, whatever reason, the bell went off, and he's been playing great. Duke against Vermont. Okay. NC State, Texas Tech. And by the way, Vermont, John Becker's done a good job. He's done. Vermont is a good team. I mean, it's not all right. Texas Tech, NC State. Here's the biggest question that's going to be about North Carolina State. How much did it take out of you to win the ACC tournament? Now, we all know UConn won 5 in 5 days in 2011 and won the national championship with Kemba Walker and those guys. Right? So it didn't hurt them. But here's the odd thing about NC State. Before the ACC tournament, how many quad one wins did they have? Do you show up at the station with a confused look?
I do. I'm trying to think if they had any.
They had one.
They had one?
They had one quad one win. I will say this. the matchup inside against the big guy, A.J. Burns.
Yeah.
For a guy that size, I realize you can't play him 40 minutes. Oh. Okay, but he has a great touch. Kentucky, Oakland. Kentucky is a strange team. They fire up a lot of threes. They average over 90 points a game. The calling card for John Calipari forever has been he's really promoted defense. Well, now they're like all in offensively, but they don't play well defensively.
No.
Now, against Oakland, they get away with it.
Yeah, they should.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, Greg Campy, 40 years. I mean, Greg Campy will have a good game plan, right? Boise and Colorado. Here's the weird thing. I saw Boise play in person twice this year. You're like, really? Because they were in the tournament in Orlando.
Yeah.
So I've seen the personnel. I mean, they have some good players in that team. And I like how they play together. And this is the third straight NCAA tournament appearance for them. So it's not like they have some guys who haven't been around the block. They got Florida. Florida scores a lot of points. They average 85 a game. They got over 100 3 times. Then they could play Colorado. And look, Tad Boyle is an excellent coach. I mean, really a good coach. Knows how to get it done. I like the look of his team. Oregon finally got him in the championship game. I watched some of that game. Marquette, Western Kentucky. Look, Marquette's really good. Yeah. And I mean, that makes a big difference. Purdue against Montana State Grambling. This will not be FDU. Utah State, TCU. Guess what? TCU, Jamie Dixon's, right? Pretty good. But Utah State is a 27-6 team. And you know what? They can win close games. I talked about Maryland being 1-10 in games decided by 5 points or less. Well, guess what? Utah State this year was 8-0 in games decided by 5 points or less or overtime. 8-0. Gonzaga, McNeese. Gonzaga had a very good year, not a great year. We all know that we're not exactly the biggest Will Wade fans on the face of the earth. But I will say this. He does coach teams that win. Right? And I watched some of the McNeese tape against Michigan before they played in the Palestra because McNeese beat Michigan. I'm like going, holy mackerel, he's got some guys that can play on this team. That is a dangerous 5-12 game. Kansas and Samford. Okay, look, McCullers and Dickinson have to get back. I mean, they're going nowhere if they don't get those guys back. Samford, okay. South Carolina, Oregon. Okay. South Carolina, to its credit, in the non-conference, played nobody. Okay. They had an entire schedule of non-conference of 330 or better. Or 330 or worse. That was their non-con. But then when they finally did get into conference, they were 5-5 in quad one games. Not bad. Oregon, I watched that closely because some of those guys are coming into the conference next year. They started out great. They're 13-3. They're undefeated in the Pac-12 with their first 5 games. And then down the stretch, they struggled and then got to the tournament as a 4 seed and won it. And I thought they played really well. In a Colorado game, they were terrific. Creighton and Akron. Creighton's lucky they got in. Kent State.
I was going to say, that was.
Creighton's a good team, especially when they shoot the 3. A good 3. Texas, Virginia, Colorado State. Colorado State, I think, will beat Virginia.
Yeah, I agree.
I remember last year, Penn State beat Colorado State in Charleston, and they were missing Stevens, who was out almost all year for them. And he was a guy they pinned a lot of hope on. Well, he's back. Well, gee, they went 24-10. Golly, pretty good. Virginia, okay, you just sense that if we were to put 5 people from the station together and have Bob and Roger playing in the post positions, that they would still struggle to score.
Yeah.
Tennessee, St. Peter's. Look, St. Peter's is back. That's nice. They're gone. Tennessee, look, Dalton. This is going to be interesting to watch Dalton. But let's watch how Dalton Connect plays in this. Remember, all the time in Northern Colorado,
he's streaky.
But he never got to the tournament.
Yeah, he's also streaky.
This is going to be the first. Yeah, but you know what? That's what makes him,
oh, yeah, sure. I mean, there's no doubt.
Look, you're talking about a guy that averaged 21 points a game this year.
Mm-hmm.
And you're talking about a guy that averages. I mean, he is the key because he averages a quarter of their points per game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm done. Okay? We ran through every game.
We did.
Okay? Every game. You, of course, made mental notes.
I did. Mental notes and recorded it, too. So
did I tell you he was going to win games? No.
No, but I think
I gave you an outline of what.
He gave me a good rough draft.
What to look
Absolutely.
for. I mean, the whole key is what to look for. So I gave you at least a rundown of what to look for, because it turns out that that's one of the great parts about this job is that I got a chance to see a lot of people play all these teams in person this year. Right? Now, obviously not everybody, but in one way, shape, or form, we saw, ended up seeing somebody that can play in the darn thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So there's your rundown in the tournament. It all starts tomorrow night in Dayton. There's nothing like being in it.
No, because you have a chance.
Yeah, but there's nothing like being in it.
Yeah.
It'd been a while, last year going out to Caitlin Clark's hometown and staying in West Des Moines. That's where we stayed, by the way.
Uh-huh.
It was in West Des Moines. We didn't ask where the house was.
No, I didn't want to get a restraining order or any of that kind of stuff.
Well, no, the first thing they asked was whether you were on the trip. We said no, and it's like they backed off on security right away. But when you go out there, and you're in it, and the open practice, and then you get to the game day, you see the competition on the floor. You're watching Colgate play Texas, or like before the Texas game, it was Arkansas against Kansas. Arkansas wins the game, right? And all, it's like everything about it, being in it, or in my case, broadcasting for a team that is in it. There's nothing like it. That's why I'm so anxious about the college football playoff.
Yeah.
Being expanded, because I've got a feeling it's going to be the same kind of feeling where there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad they expanded it, because for the fans, there's nothing like it.
Yeah, and I think it's great to have that potential home game too. I think that's the other part of it. You have that one chance to really to see it again.
But again, there's nothing like that feel as a fan. I was told like Penn State's out there, they're playing, and I guess Champs was filled.
Yeah,
right? With everybody trying to watch the game together.
Absolutely.
Which, and that's the kind of thing that's just so cool.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
And that really is an incredibly ugly shirt. But I got to give you credit. It looks good on you.
That's right. Judge Smells would agree.